Hello, I'm Joseph Bland, and this is my system configuration video for the Mastering Studio. As its name implies, the purpose of this studio is for mastering music, which is the final stage in a track's life cycle. After mastering, a music track should be ready for commercial release. The studio is equipped to create masters for various formats such as tape, vinyl, iTunes, and Spotify. The Mastering Studio has been acoustically treated to provide a flat frequency response in the room, giving as close to a true sound as possible. It has a range of analog equipment and digital plugins that are designed for adding holistic improvements and character to a mixed track. There are 6 dynamics processors, which can be used to raise the track's level to be acceptable for commercial release. These are very capable and easy to use, however some people prefer to use digital plugins, which is an equally viable option. There are many varieties of digital processors in the box that perform similar tasks to their analog counterparts. Some people favour analog over digital and vice versa. This studio will appease both groups. The Mastering Studio is also home to the Studer A80 reel-to-reel master recorder. This is an ex-BBC tape machine that has been set up to allow the user to record material to tape and then send it back into the digital realm. You can also keep the audio on the tape to create an analog backup or master of a track. This is a permanent and physical backup that will work regardless of software updates and file formats, which is a concern to some industry professionals. Respected audio engineer Steve Albini praises the permanence of analog tape masters, believing that it is the recording engineer's duty to create a historical record. As well as the benefits of its physicality, tape imparts a slight audible quality to music. It allows easy reduction of a track's dynamic range with no negative impact on the sound. The harmonic enhancement of the music can counteract the DSP sounding enhancement of in-the-box processing. Hardware gives even harmonics, which is slightly dissonant, and fully working to tape gives odd harmonics, which is more musical. Recording to the Studer in this analog-digital hybrid studio imparts a bit of even harmonic content through preamps. Because of this, tape appears to deliver a more complex sounding result. It is balanced, obfuscates digital processing, and has a natural sound to it. The studio has recently been installed with Key 3 monitors that deliver a great sense of clarity, dynamics, and detail. In his glowing review for Sound on Sound, Phil Ward wrote that when listening to the Key 3s, you almost forget that there's a speaker between you and the music. These deliver better spectral distribution and a satisfying neutral balance. A special thing about these monitors are their rear-facing bass drivers, which compare favourably to soffit-mounted monitors. These provide an even distribution of bass content by effectively turning the rear wall into part of the speaker. The audio in the studio is handled primarily with XLR cables. This is because it is a relatively small studio with short and simple connection paths, so is able to utilize the secure connection that XLRs offer. The cables lock into place, meaning that they are less problematic. The Mac Mini acts as the conduit to the entire studio. Soundblade and Pro Tools are installed there, and sessions are run from it. The Mac Mini is silent within its natural operating temperatures. It is cold and contains no moving parts. The fan is not constantly running, meaning that there's no chance that it may colour the sound. It is also compact compared to a full-size Mac Tower, and takes up next to no room on the desk. Since mastering engineers mostly just work with one track at a time, the computer does not need to be extremely powerful. The Mac is running Pro Tools HD 2018.2 as it is the most recent version that reliably works with regards to the studio's needs. It also has Soundblade HD version 2.2 because it is the most stable, tested version. Soundblade is a piece of software created for mastering purposes. Unlike Pro Tools, Soundblade can create DDP images and export songs with PQ markers. This is used when creating CDs. The Antelope Eclipse 384 is a multifaceted piece of hardware that is directly connected to the Mac Mini via USB. It is a D to A and an A to D converter, a master sync clock, and a monitoring controller designed specifically for mastering. The Antelope Eclipse is capable of handling audio up to 384 kHz, and even though the Mac operating system won't go higher than 96K, the robust nature of the clock ensures that everything is synchronized. It also serves to future-proof itself in the case that people eventually do want to work with 384 kHz audio quality. It is an incredibly clear piece of hardware that imparts no color to passing audio. It is used by experienced mastering engineer Howie Weinberg.
When I capture something, I just want to capture it exactly as I hear it. I don't want sound.
The Antelope Eclipse 384 is the method by which the studio is synchronized. It has a feature called an oven that sustains an optimal temperature for the crystal inside to maintain a regulated sample speed. The Eclipse is set to output audio to the Key 3 monitors through XLR cables. The Eclipse has 5 numbered buttons on its face that allow the user to save 5 signal path presets. Opening up the Eclipse control panel, we can see these presets. The first path is the USB path that is connected to the Mac Mini. It simply takes the audio out from the Mac Mini via USB and outputs it to the Key 3s. It allows you to monitor the computer software and subsequent plug-in processing. When working in the box, this will be the used path. Number 2 enables the analog workflow. It connects the Antelope Eclipse up to the Dangerous Master. This is the beating heart of the analog signal process chain, and I will return to this module shortly. The third path is the one to connect up to the Studer A80, which outputs the D to A signal at -12 dB. The reason for this is twofold. The lowered signal massively reduces the risk of getting accidental tape distortion, and it also acts like a pad switch, granting the user more control of the level. It is a common misconception that analog signals should be as loud as possible. This can potentially ruin a mix by adding non-removable distortion. The signal path travels via their Dolby 363 SRA noise reduction unit. This piece of equipment is designed to reduce the noise that is inherent in analog recording media without affecting the sound quality of the recorded audio. It reduces tape hiss, decreases distortion, and increases the dynamic range by up to 24 dB. It was commonly used in film and television, but it is also incredibly useful in this circumstance too. Dolby noise reduction operates on an encode-decode process. This fact, coupled with there being only one unit in the studio, means that when recording with the A80, you have to print it to the tape before recording back into Pro Tools. If there were a second unit, you could do this process in one pass. The fourth preset is the headphone path. It shuts the monitors off, allowing the user to hear only the headphones. The fifth path is calibrated for use with an external converter. The Dangerous Master acts as an analog summing point, controls input and output levels, allows you to insert hardware processors into the path, and also crucially gives the function of mid-side processing via Insert 2. According to revered mastering engineer Jonathan Weiner, the Dangerous Master is
kind of at the nerve center or the heart of the analog signal processing chain.
It is an audibly transparent piece of equipment, which makes it ideal for a mastering console. All of the controls are stepped, meaning that it is easy to recall in future mastering sessions. It has individual left and right input gain knobs and a single stereo control for the output. The S&M width knob relates to the idea of mid-side. Mid-side is an alternative form of stereo, sometimes referred to as BBC stereo, where instead of clearly defined left and right channels, the mix is divided into sum and difference channels. Mid, which is the sum of elements common to both channels, thereby forming the central content, and difference being elements in the mix that are not equal. The mix engineer will have panned some instruments left and right, and the severity of this determines how spread out a track feels. Processing and mastering can be applied to either the whole track, just the middle, or just the sides. This S&M knob allows the user to tighten or widen the stereo field, and it is especially useful when applying processing to just the sides of a mix, as it can accentuate the perceived effect. The input monitor offset knob is there to allow you to match the original signal's loudness to the processed version. This lets you A/B between them and consider the sonic differences without the volume disparity colouring your opinion. The Dangerous Master has 3 numbered insert buttons that allow you to insert 3 individual processors, or alternatively daisy chain any number of processors. In the Mastering Studio, the insert paths have already been assigned. Insert 1 goes straight to the Avalon 747 Stereo Vacuum Tube Compressor EQ, as it is a favourite among mastering engineers and its easy access is appreciated. The Avalon 747 is described by some as mix glue, something that appears to bind the processed mix together. It has a compressor with sidechain capability on the left side and a 6-band graphic equalizer on the right. A common use for the 747 is using its EQ to give a subtle lift to the vocals. Insert 2 is hooked up to the Sontec 250EX EQ. This is connected to Insert 2 to take advantage of the Dangerous Master's mid-side functionality. A common use for mid-side processing is EQ. Finally, Insert 3 goes straight over to the patch bay, where a plethora of units can be accessed via XLR cables. The Waves L2 Ultra Maximizer is a 48-bit 96K digital look-ahead peak limiter and is designed to be the last process in a mastering chain. The Waves L2 also exists as a plugin and is adored by many, which is why it was added to the studio. It is digital, therefore contains robust A to D and D to A converters to fit in with the analog signal chain. There are 3 main controls on this device: threshold, output ceiling, and release. The controls are not stepped, allowing for extremely minute changes to be made, but the L2 has orange 7-segment displays, meaning that recall is as easy as turning a knob to the correct value. This device functions exactly like a software limiter, and exists to make a completed mix louder and more competitive with regards to levels. The Neve 33609 is a stereo compressor limiter that was originally used in the 1970s. It is well loved for its transparency, even when being pushed. It has been described as sounding buttery and flattering. It has both a compressor and limiter section, which makes it versatile in its usages and very practical for mastering. It has all the control knobs that one would expect for a compressor and limiter, apart from attack. It is famous for gluing mixes together, making them sound fuller and more expensive. It is so sought after that there is a plugin that emulates this piece of equipment. Next up is the DBX 160 compressor limiter, which is widely considered to be the finest VCA compressor, so much so that it also has a plugin replicating it. The 160 has fixed attack and release times and as such is enjoyed for its warm and grainy punch. Unlike the previous pieces of hardware, the DBX 160 is not transparent and instead imparts aggressive and impactful character to audio. The hardware works in stereo, hence the 2 distinct parts to its design. The DBX 160 will not be useful for every project, but when trying to make something sound punchy, this is incredibly useful. The SSL 4000G bus compressor works in stereo only and does not allow you to process the left and right channels differently. It is a well-known compressor and has sparked many clones both physically and digitally. Much like the 33609, the 4000G is praised for its ability to glue the track together into a united whole without sacrificing clarity. It is primarily designed for transparent compression, smoothing, and cohesion. Finally, we have the Fairchild 670 tube-based compressor. Dating back to the 60s, this is one of the most iconic compressors. It has a fast attack and slow release, which was incredibly useful in broadcasting, but recording engineers soon found that it sounded impressive in musical contexts. As it is an older design, it cannot easily handle newer electronic genres with a lot of low end, but for older genres like jazz and rock, it is more than proficient. Next is the flowchart, detailing the way that everything in the studio is interfaced. As you can see, the signal starts off from the Mac Mini. Sessions can be saved to its built-in hard drive, the 500GB external hard drive, or loaded in through the USB hub. The display is connected via HDMI and the internet connection is handled through Ethernet. The next stage is the Antelope converter, which is connected to the Mac via USB. If the Antelope's preset button 1 is pressed, the audio passing through is that from the Mac. The signal from here is then outputted to the Key 3 monitors through XLR cables. If the Antelope's preset button 2 is pressed, then the signal goes into the Dangerous Master. This is the module that allows analog processing into the path. Insert 1 on the Dangerous Master goes to the Avalon 747. Insert 2 goes to the Sontec EQ, and Insert 3 goes over to the patch bay. The ports on the patch bay are clearly labelled and the signal flow speaks for itself. The only misnomer is the SSL bus compressor, which is labelled as Xena. An improvement to the studio could be the option of including mastering software Sequoia as an alternative to Soundblade. It is more user-friendly, more regularly updated, and is perhaps more sophisticated than Soundblade. It also has a reputation for stability compared to the oft-crashing nature of Soundblade. The main downsides, however, are that Sequoia is a PC-exclusive piece of software, and it costs £2,580. The Mac Mini would need to be partitioned to be able to run Windows, which is free but takes a skilled technician to perform. Soundblade is adept enough, however, and this edition would only benefit those who are already familiar with Sequoia. Another small problem is the fact that the shiny laminate desk in the studio slightly reflects some of the higher frequencies. To fix this, the desk could be tilted towards the chair to reflect fewer waves. However, according to AcousticsInsider.com, unless you are willing to work without a desk at all, the desk reflection is simply something you have to live with. A final improvement would be the addition of another Dolby 363 noise reduction unit. This would allow the simultaneous recording and playback of music instead of having to wait for the recording to print to tape and then play back to Pro Tools. This would cost £365 and would save time when working with tape. Here is the revised flowchart that would exist if a second unit was implemented. In conclusion, the Mastering Studio is adept at mastering, and there are few improvements that could be made to its first-rate design.